Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. Nestled within the sprawling hills of West Virginia, the small town of Maplewood was often described as a gem hidden away, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. With its quaint houses lining the streets and the murmur of the river serving as a calming backdrop, it was a place where everyone knew each other's names. But beneath this charming facade lurked an undercurrent of darkness that would soon shatter its peaceful existence. On a crisp autumn morning in October 2015, the tranquility of Maplewood was abruptly disturbed. As the first golden rays of sunlight pierced through the thick morning mist, the local sheriff's office was already abuzz with an urgent call. A body had been discovered in the woods near the abandoned railway track, something not seen in this close-knit community for decades. Deputy Sarah Mitchell was among the first responders to arrive on the scene. The eerie atmosphere clung to her like a heavy fog as she navigated through the dense tree line, her heart racing with the anticipation that something sinister was unwinding in her town. The victim lay motionless among a bed of damp leaves, the lifeless form of a young woman, barely in her 20s. Her blonde hair spread like a halo around her head, but it was the bruises visible on her neck that told a more troubling story. The images of that gruesome day would haunt Deputy Mitchell long after the scene was secured, an image of innocence abruptly stripped away. As she initiated the investigation, pieces began to emerge: a shattered glass bracelet on the ground, a distinct set of tire tracks nearby, and whispers of a vibrant life that had met a tragic end. Little did they know, as they pieced together the clues, that this case would unveil a tangled web of secrets binding the townspeople of Maplewood in ways they had never imagined. The victim. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting elongated shadows over the crime scene, the victim's identity slowly began to unravel. Deputy Sarah Mitchell carefully scrutinized the young woman's possessions, her heart weighing heavy with the knowledge that every detail held the potential to illuminate the dark corners of this tragedy. Her name was Emily Hart, a name that had once conjured images of laughter and promise. A recent college graduate, Emily had returned to Maplewood with dreams of revitalizing her family's bakery, a beloved establishment that had weathered storms of its own. Friends described her as vibrant, full of contagious energy, and possessing a knack for making even the simplest joys feel extraordinary. As Deputy Mitchell picked up the shard of the broken bracelet, she couldn't help but wonder how the town could have transformed from a haven into a backdrop for such horror. Emily's family had reported her missing just 3 days early. The realization struck like a thunderbolt. She had vanished without a trace. Uncertainty hung heavily in the air as the sheriff's office struggled with the implications of a crime scandalizing their peaceful community. They reached out to Emily's friends and family, sifting through a deluge of sorrow-stricken voices recounting her life, desperate to understand how a vibrant soul had fallen victim to violence. The local diner, where Emily often spent her mornings, quickly became a hub for those grieving her loss. Sobs intertwined with whispered conversations as friends recalled her kindness, her laughter echoing in their minds a sharp contrast to the stark reality they were facing. It was here that Deputy Mitchell first heard whispers of Jason, a young man she had recently begun dating. Friends cautiously shared their unease, citing Emily's apparent distress over the relationship's growing intensity. In the wake of her tragic death, a once glimmering picture of Emily Hart began to form within the shadows. Each new revelation unearthed painful questions. Who truly knew her? And who among them could harbor such darkness? The threads of her life were beginning to tangle, weaving an intricate narrative that promised to draw Deputy Mitchell deeper into Maplewood's hidden complexity. Crime scene. As the initial shock wore off, forensic teams arrived in waves, transforming the secluded woods into a hive of meticulous activity. Bright yellow tape cordoned off the area like a noose around the truth, while the sharp hum of drones hovered overhead, capturing angles of the scene that the human eye might miss. Deputy Sarah Mitchell stood against the rustling backdrop of trees, her gaze fixated on the tangled underbrush concealing the troubling narrative of Emily's last moments. The ground was uneven, carpeted with damp leaves and twigs, but as the investigators moved forward, they began to piece together vital evidence. A seasoned forensic technician knelt beside a patch of ground, dusting for fingerprints on a discarded soda can an unsettling distance from where Emily lay. Beside it, a small footprint in the muddy earth betrayed signs of a struggle through prints, one larger than the other, etched into the soil in a hurried scuffle. Carefully, Deputy Mitchell's breath quickened as she documented the scene, trying to reconstruct the chaotic sequence of events that had led to Emily's untimely demise. She scrutinized every element: the broken bracelet near Emily's body, the dirt that had inexplicably clung to her clothes yet seemed strangely absent from the ground. It was as if she had fought for her life, but it was a battle she had ultimately lost. The way in which the body was positioned suggested it had not simply come to rest there. Emily Hart had been discarded, lifeless. A faint scar on her wrist told an unspoken story, hinting at careless battles fought before. Whispered theories began circulating among the team, one theory punctuated by the unsettling thought that someone had known this vulnerable piece of her heart and soul. After hours of painstaking examination, deputies collected every piece of evidence before the sun slipped away, surrendering to the dim dusk. As night cloaked the scene, Deputy Mitchell knew the warm, homey glow evoked by Maplewood's friendly atmosphere had now dimmed, replaced by a smothering tension that made her stomach churn. The investigation was not just about finding out who had committed this heinous act. It was about uncovering the truth behind a life cut tragically short. And with each new lead, the burden of the unknown weighed heavier on her shoulders. The early investigation. In the days following Emily Hart's discovery, Maplewood became a brewing storm of speculation and fear. Funeral arrangements were swiftly made for the beloved local girl, while the sheriff's office shifted into high gear, launching a comprehensive investigation that permeated every corner of the town. For Deputy Sarah Mitchell, the urgency of the case was palpable. She worked late into the night under the flickering fluorescent lights of the station, her desk littered with notes and photographs. Their first order of business was to revisit Emily's last known whereabouts. The hours leading up to her disappearance were critical, and interviews began to unfold like a well-rehearsed play, each character adding layers to a tragic narrative. Friends shared the details of her erratic moods and unease, a canvas of mental struggles that hinted at a darker undercurrent pervasive in her seemingly ordinary life. But the most significant lead surfaced when Emily's close friend, May, mentioned an unsettling incident. "He was possessive," May lamented, tears streaking her makeup. After a few dates, she said Jason would get angry if she didn't check it. She thought it was sweet at first, but it turned into pressure. The revelation sent shockwaves through the team, opening a door to Jason's world, an unsettling place, characterized by jealousy painted in vibrant strokes. Another interview led them to the small gym where Emily and Jason often worked out together. The gym owner, a burly man with a heart as big as his muscles, recalled one afternoon when he overheard raised voices near the weight bench. She looked upset, he recounted, his brow furrowed in concern. Jason was basically towering over her, and she was trying to walk away. Simultaneously, the investigation unearthed a surprising truth. Jason had no alibi for the night Emily disappeared. His scheduled shift at the warehouse had been canceled, unexplained, and that absence sparked a fire beneath the detectives who were scrutinizing him. The contrast became chilling. The perfect boyfriend to her chaotic life painted a picture of tumultuous love fraught with danger. With each new piece of the puzzle emerged another shadow lurking behind. As Sarah worked late into the midnight hours, piecing together timelines and crafting a narrative that felt all too familiar, the stakes intensified. It was a dance along the edge of discovery and denial. And with every passing hour, one question loomed large. Was this young man's affection a masquerade for a deeply unsettling truth? The dead ends. Days turned into a blur of interviews, evidence collection, and late-night brainstorming sessions. Yet progress remained agonizingly slow. Despite the growing pile of disturbing revelations surrounding Jason, every lead seemed to circle back in on itself, folding into shadows that grew darker with each passing moment. Deputy Sarah Mitchell found herself feeling increasingly restless, as if the ticking clock in the corner of her desk was mocking her persistence. The investigation hit its first major dead end when Jason was brought in for questioning. An impeccable facade of calmness unnerved the entire team. During the interview, his answers oscillated between defensive and dismissive, each phrase punctuated with a rehearsed veil of concern for Emily's well-being. "I loved her," he insisted, his voice faltering. "I would never hurt her. I don't even know why you're looking at me." When they pressed him for details about the evening she disappeared, Jason recounted a timeline that felt all too convenient. He claimed he had been at home watching videos, alone. There were no witnesses and no traceable digital footprint on his online accounts, creating a chasm of uncertainty that left investigators no choice but to expand their search. As frustration brewed, the team turned their sights to Emily's social media accounts and discovered a series of distressing messages hidden among the mundane posts. A strange pattern emerged. Conversations littered with passive-aggressive remarks from Jason, wherein he often questioned her about other friends and their motives. A tension lingered behind the screens that was now visceral, painting Jason as both a lover and a captor to its deranged lover's dialogue. Pursuing tips, they followed every lead. A faded security camera near the bakery had revealed nothing. A witness at the gym who had mistaken Emily for another woman. Each trail seemed promising, only to lead to more questions with no answers. Sarah found herself circling back to the very first piece of evidence found on the forest floor. The broken bracelet and pictured Emily's last moment. The haunting image of helplessness only fanned the flames of her determination. But with each day that passed, hope dimmed. The case felt like quicksand threatening to swallow them whole. And as October wore on, Deputy Mitchell grappled with the gnawing fear that if they didn't find a breakthrough soon, they might never discover the truth behind Emily Hart's tragic end. The connection between love and violence began to cast a dark shadow across their efforts, but the question remained: would they be able to uncover the secrets before the town's fear consumed them all? A break in the case. Just as despair threatened to take root within the walls of the Maplewood Sheriff's Office, an unexpected glimmer of hope emerged. A tip from a resident, a longtime local who frequented the bakery and had known Emily all her life, signaled a shift in the investigation. The woman had reported seeing a car parked near the abandoned railway track on the night Emily disappeared. distinctive red sedan she recognized as belonging to a stranger in town. With renewed vigor, Deputy Sarah Mitchell and her team wasted no time. They traced the vehicle to a man named Eric Lawson, a nomadic artist who had moved to Maplewood only a few weeks prior. The locals had kept their distance, whispering stories about his odd behavior and an eccentric lifestyle that rendered him enigmatic and somewhat unsettling. Many had seen him painting murals in the park, but no one knew much more than that. When they unraveled the details of Lawson's whereabouts that fateful night, the pieces began to fit together. He had been present at the park just a stone's throw from where Emily spent her final hours. His alibi fell apart the moment investigators dug deeper. Neighbors recalled hearing raised voices in the distance, and other sketchy characters mingling around the park raised additional alarms. With urgency, Sarah and her team brought Lawson in for questioning. He had an air of nonchalance, which contrasted sharply with the deliberate assembling of evidence that had begun to build against him. Throughout the interview, he stumbled over details, his account morphing like wisps of smoke. Meanwhile, Sarah's instincts kicked in. The inner workings of his mind began to unravel beneath her probing. "Tell me about the night you were at the railway," she pressed gently, observing the flicker of discomfort in his eyes. He hesitated, fidgeting with the remnants of a half-eaten candy bar resting on the table before him. "I just was painting," he stammered, avoiding her gaze. "Inspiration strikes at odd hours." But in the back of her mind, something shifted. A deeper pattern began to surface: the convergence of Jason's dark jealousy, Emily's covert anguish, and Lawson's disassociation with reality. The threads, once thought disparate, now intertwined through a common yearning for control. After a long night of analysis and strategy, Sarah left the office just before dawn with a renewed sense of determination. A surge of adrenaline pumped through her veins, told it be that they were finally closing in on the truth. Every passing moment, she could almost feel Emily's spirit urging her forward, propelling them toward justice in a case that had rattled the heart of a community. The suspect. As dawn broke over Maplewood, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Deputy Sarah Mitchell returned to the station armed with fresh resolve. The intrigue surrounding Eric Lawson complicated matters like a spider's web, catching every crevice of her thoughts. His demeanor, while initially unfazed, now exuded a hint of something darker, perhaps, a reflection of the mania that thrived in the creative mind, gone awry. Mornings often started with a briefing among the team, and this day was no different. As the coffee brewed, charts and timelines lined the walls like a family tree to the tangled and twisted saga of Emily's murder. With Lawson in their sights, fresh evidence began to elucidate the nightmare surrounding Emily's final hour. She had not just been another name attached to a brutal crime. She had been a vibrant young woman, ultimately ensnared in the grip of jealousy and madness. Simultaneous background checks on Lawson revealed a curtain of unsettling truths. He had a history of erratic behavior and had been forcibly removed from other small towns where he had lived, each leaving whispers of encounters with the law and accusations of stalking. The verification of these accounts fueled Sarah's interest. This man was more than an eccentric artist. He was a ticking time bomb, someone who appeared buoyant yet survived on the edge of social acceptance. Compelled to gain a clearer picture of his connection to Emily, Sarah zeroed in on digital footprints. Investigators unearthed social media posts where Emily had engaged with Lawson's artwork online, complimenting his vivid colors and haunting themes. Those simple gestures of encouragement, benign innocence, had unwittingly stoked his obsession. The decision was made to bring Lawson in for a second round of questioning, this time with a more confrontational approach. When he entered the room, nonchalance had been replaced with tension. He seemed to know he was being cornered. Sarah laid out the evidence before him like a hunter displaying her catch, a glaring juxtaposition of his careless demeanor against the gravity of Emily's fate. "You say you were painting in the park that night," she began, her voice steady. "But multiple witnesses place you near the railway track long after the sun went down. How do you explain that?" Lawson's brow furrowed as the panic surged through him like a painter realizing that the colors had all run together, leaving a dismal patchwork in its wake. The facade began to crack, revealing flickers of agitation as Sarah pressed harder, closing in like a predatory force, unable to let him escape this time. Discomfort turned to frustration as he fumbled with words. "I don't know what you think you saw, Deputy. I'm an artist. I don't do those things." His denial was almost too rehearsed a mortuary for the truth laying buried beneath layers of lies. With mounting evidence, Sarah felt herself standing at the precipice of illumination. Could Eric Lawson be the key to unlocking the riddle of Emily's death, or merely another player in a symphony of tragedy? The answer loomed tantalizingly close, and Sarah was determined to cut through the layers of deception, seeking justice, if only for Emily's sake. The trial. As the chill of November settled over Maplewood, a somber weight overshadowed the usually vibrant streets. The air crackled with a mix of anticipation and dread as news spread that Eric Lawson's trial for the murder of Emily Hart would begin in just a few days. The town, gripped by the haunting shadow of violence, was poised to bear witness to the harrowing truth of what had transpired within its borders. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Families were divided between the heartsick loss of a beloved daughter and the possibility of justice being served. Deputy Sarah Mitchell sat among mournful faces, her heart clenched as she recounted Emily's laughter. The warmth that had once filled the bakery, now echoes of a distant memory. As members of the community filed into the courtroom, the stakes felt immeasurable. Emily's legacy rested in the balance, awaiting the verdict that could affect every person who called this town home. Prosecutor Ellen Tremor opened the case with a narrative that intertwined the facts with the emotions that had gripped Maplewood since Emily's death. The painstaking investigation, the frantic timeline, and the web of Jason's jealousy, entwined with Lawson's obsession, painted a damning picture. Jurors listened intently as evidence unfolded: the broken bracelet found at the crime scene, social media exchanges, and testimonies from friends and witnesses who had glimpsed the tension brewing beneath the surface. With every piece of evidence presented, Sarah felt a weight lift yet linger. The courtroom became a ghost of Emily, each missing laugh echoing in the silence. But it was the defense that set the mood on edge, countering with claims of innocence and what they called an overzealous assumption that Lawson was nothing more than an eccentric artist caught up in a tragic sequence of misunderstandings. Their assertion that Lawson had been at the park merely for inspiration was meant to obscure him beneath a veil of artistic temperament. The trial stretched into days, emotions running high. Friends who had known Emily stepped onto the stand, depicting her strength yet vulnerability. Their words held audiences captive, weaving a narrative of love overshadowed by fear. Sarah watched as Lawson's expression shifted, His bravado crumbled under the weight of testimony sphere flickering in his eyes like a candle threatened by a sudden gust of wind. When it came time for Sarah to testify, she felt the enormity of her responsibility. As she recounted the evidence and the intricacies of the investigation, the atmosphere in the courtroom thickened with a resonance of grief and anguish. Each revelation felt like a dagger in the heart of the community. Each note of Emily's life was carefully balanced against the horror of her final moment. As jury deliberations began, the intensity of silence fell upon the courtroom, punctuated only by anxious breaths and the rustle of papers. Hours crawled by. Conversations hushed to whispers, and fingers drummed nervously on tabletop. Finally, a verdict was reached, and a ripple of tension electrified the earth. Jurors filed in, solemn and steady. When the foreman spoke the words, "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty," a surge of release enveloped the gallery. Amidst the emotional eruption of tears and muted cheers, Deputy Mitchell felt the swell of collective grief transform, the waves of loss shifting towards the semblance of closure. Though no verdict could bring Emily back, her light became a beacon in the dark, illuminating the memories of a life once lived and loved. As Lawson was led away in handcuffs, Sarah remained steadfast. The struggle was not over. The fight against the shadows of jealousy and violence would continue. Yet they had taken a step forward together, one that promised to honor Emily Hart's memory for years to come. The aftermath. With the leaves falling and the air growing crisp, Maplewood began the slow, painful process of healing. The trial swung a long shadow over the community, yet it also ignited a flicker of resilience among its residents. Mourners gathered at the bakery, a hub of cherished memories and a constant reminder of Emily's vibrant spirit. Those who had once whispered in hushed tones about the impending trial now came together to share stories of her laughter, her dreams, and the warmth she had brought to their lives. Emily's family, stripped of their daughter, yet determined to honor her memory, embarked on the creation of the Emily Hart Foundation, an initiative aimed at educating the community on the signs of unhealthy relationships and advocating for mental health awareness. Within weeks, local schools integrated curriculums that focused on nurturing emotional intelligence and building supportive environments. Sarah Mitchell found herself frequently collaborating with the Hart family, visiting schools, sharing experiences, and reflecting on the tragedy that had sewn their lives into a shared tapestry of sorrow and action. But as the town rallied around Emily's legacy, the question of Jason's involvement in her life lingered like an unsolved puzzle piece at the edge of their minds. Investigators remained diligent, digging into the potential connections between Lawson and Jason. They uncovered sporadic meetings that hinted at more than just acquaintanceship, deepening the threads of intrigue and mistrust that wove through the fabric of Maplewood. During one of these examinations, they discovered an unknown phone number etched in a notebook belonging to Lawson, a number linked to Jason. The revelation sent shivers through Sarah as images of a conspiratorial plot began to form in her mind. Had Jason known about Lawson's possessiveness? Had he even courted a silent partnership in Emily's demise? An unsettling weight settled within her, stoking the embers of her determination once again. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah faced the daunting task of piecing together Emily's last moments. Intent on understanding how two men had intertwined their lives with a woman so cherished. In a second round of interviews with Jason, the tension escalated. Sarah pressed him for transparency, yet he responded with sarcasm and veiled disdain, attempting to belittle the investigation. The smugness clashed painfully with the gravity of the situation. Frustration simmered just beneath the surface as she pondered how to confront Jason with her newfound evidence. Yet, as she delved deeper into the inquiry, it became increasingly clear that unraveling the twisted bond between the two men would not only bring clarity, but potentially uncover more truths that could echo through Maplewood for years to come. As the remnants of Emily's life permeated the town, Deputy Mitchell found herself renewed with purpose. Each day became a testament to the lasting impact of actions and choices, an intricate lesson about love, rage, and the thin line that divided them. The quilt of Maplewood was stitched with resilience now, each patch telling a story of its inhabitants, and at the heart of it all remained the indomitable spirit of Emily Hart, a beacon, illuminating the path toward understanding, healing, and the fight against the shadows. Reflection. Months slipped by, and life in Maplewood continued to ebb and flow, forever altered by the events that had transpired. As winter began to blanket the town, Deputy Sarah Mitchell found herself at a crossroads, both personally and professionally. The case of Emily Hart had dug far deeper than the surface, leaving behind scars that never truly healed. Yet it also sparked a change in the very fabric of the community she served. Sitting by the flickering glow of a fire one evening, enveloped in the warmth of belonging, Sarah reflected on Emily's legacy. The lessons learned echoed in her mind, a powerful reminder of the fragility of life and the weight of personal choices. Emily had been more than a victim. She had become a source of strength and a catalyst for growth in the community. The bakery was now filled with laughter once more, yet shadows sometimes lingered among the pastries, reminiscent of the heartache that had touched them all. The investigation had led Sarah to confront the darker sides of human nature: obsession, jealousy, and rage. But through it all, she discovered how a community could rally to uplift one another, turning grief into action and loss into purpose. The foundations laid by the Emily Hart Foundation began to foster open conversations about mental health. Lives were being transformed, narratives rewritten. In the quiet moments, Sarah would often imagine Emily smiling, encouraging others to embrace the light she had once exuded. There was a power in reflection. There was a power in reflection, a strength that propelled her toward the future. Ultimately, it wasn't just about solving a crime. It was about healing, fostering compassion, and recognizing the stories that dwell within voices. Long silence. As she prepared for the long winter ahead, she knew that each snowflake, delicate and unique, symbolized the beauty of life, intertwined with resilience, a cycle of beginnings and endings, teaching her that the heart of justice lies not only in its pursuit, but in its capacity to inspire change.